to this space.
Is that Miss Celeste Varco?
Yeah, Miss Virko speaking.
Your call to Mr. Anthony Wedgwood Ben in Tokyo. I'm connecting you now.
Oh, thank you, at last. Hello, Mr. Ben. I do hope you don't mind me calling you all this way, but I just had to call you up and thank you for the wonderful service you've given me by your marvelous GPO. Now, you may not know this, being in Tokyo and all, but I advertised in the Times yesterday because I couldn't get a telephone. And before I knew where I was, I had one. I just want to tell you that I think your telephone service is the greatest in the world, Mr. Ben. Mr. Ben? Are you there, Mr. Ben?
My dear young lady, I don't know who you are or what you want. This is Edward Heath here, out in Borneo.
Said John Lennon's father Fred in Tuesday's London Evening News.
I've always wanted new teeth because I like to smile, but I couldn't afford them. I lost them opening bottles.
Said Australian parachutist Sue Wright in Monday's Daily Mirror after she had been kissed in midair by fellow parachutist Ken Voss.
He manoeuvred across using his arms and legs, and we kissed. What is technically known as a lipstick pass. It is the highest I have ever kissed a man.
Said record pools winner Frank Wall in Thursday's Daily Mirror after receiving a cheque for £275,000.
I shall never bake another bun as long as I live.
Said genealogist Michael Heenan to the Daily Express about his current work tracing Mr. Edward Heath's family tree.
It is becoming fairly obvious that Mr. Heath's line is not dissimilar from Mr. Wilson's.
We didn't need a family tree to tell us that. Said Mrs. Barbara Castle according to last night's London Evening Standard.
I intend to try and bring a fresh wind to this problem of transport.
And finally said Wimbledon dress designer Terry Tinling in today's Daily Express.
I've done a series of sexy shifts for this summer. A girl needs a waddle to wear one of those. No use for the champs who have to keep their eye on the ball.
Yes, those are some of the fantastic things that people have actually said in the first week of 1966, and there will be plenty more like them at this time each week when we invite you, as we do now, to listen to this space.
Hello, everyone. Sandy here. I'd like to take this opportunity of wishing all my many fans a very happy new year. And special thanks for all your cards, and to the lady in Bayswater who sent me a piece of a haggis. As usual, I've been scouring the world's papers for your delight, and I came across this American advertisement which shows that Britain has made it at last. It says, "Thanks to perseverance and unswerving devotion to the highest standard of quality, the name of Shakespeare has won a place for itself as America's greatest prestige cigar." Well, I thought you might like that. Talking of unswerving devotion to the highest standard of quality, here's the BBC's answer to the winning smile of ITN's Valentino, Gordon Honeycomb, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Handy Sandy. The new year has started, and an acrimonious note has crept into it as far as fashion is concerned. I was sorry to read on Wednesday that Princess Margaret has been included in the American list of the 10 worst-dressed women in the world. But the comments about her were hardly as devastating as those about Madame Charles de Gaulle, of whom it was said, "Behind every successful man is a woman. Unfortunately, Madame de Gaulle is about 20 years behind." On Thursday, there was demoralizing news for the Army. The official Army magazine, Soldier, is dropping its back page pin-ups after 20 years. But a corporal in the Brigade of Guards told the Daily Mirror,
They got it all wrong. The lads love pin-ups, especially the men out in the jungle.
well, a soldier's got to keep up his morale somehow. Thunderball, James Bond's latest picture, is a fantastic success this week, but it has not been greeted enthusiastically by Swiss actor Pierre Duclos. He's the man who speaks Sean Connery's words in the dubbed French version of all his films. Mr. Duclos told the Mirror on Tuesday,
There just aren't enough lines in the Bond films. It is just not funny when you are paid by the line. Thunderball is more than I can bear. All that stuff underwater, not a single word. Give me Italian films every time. They sit around in bedrooms and talk their heads off.
There's a seductive item in today's Mirror, too. It reads,
Most of the girls I know like to live it up a bit, but not Lucy. I'll go round to her place and she makes some tea and we just sit and talk. Though, come to think of it, we don't talk that much. You'd think it'd be dead boring, wouldn't you? But it isn't.
Is this a quotation from a controversial television play or a lurid paperback? No, it's an invitation to join the tea set. So don't forget, men, if it's virility you're after, there's nothing like a tea bag. In Cornwall, it has been revealed this week that Cornishmen who have already adopted the kilt are now proposing to register their own tartan. The man behind the Cornish kilt is Mr. Ernest Morton Nance. A Cornish spokesman told us,
Like Nance said, this is only the beginning, my dears. What we want is our own tam o' shanter, floral bagpipes, our own sword dance, and insulated sporrans to keep our little Cornish pasties warm.
There's a song come up from the West Country today as well. It goes like this.
Maybe it's because we're in Barnstaple that we miss London so.
There's been a complaint this week about Marjorie Proops in a letter to the Mirror.
Can't Marjorie Proops write about anything but sex and lovers, jumping in and out of bed, etc.? There are lots of things in life far more necessary and interesting than sex. Signed, Bachelor, Peterborough.
There's a place for him in the regular army. Which brings us to our Song of the Week.
Come on along and join the queue that's jamming roads to Broadway. It's Michael Quill's old ballyhoo that's coming up old Broadway. No rumble of the subway train, and everyone runs taxis. The businessman who entertains can't even get to Max's when a Broadway baby says goodnight. She'll have to go home walking until the strikers stop their fight. There'll be no go. Keep your cars out. Stay at home today. Keep your cars out. Keep out. Johnson's on his way to try and solve the traffic jam on Old Broadway.
There was news in Monday's Daily Express of the Woolsack. This is, of course, the seat upon which the Lord Chancellor sits in the House of Lords. It is all the result of an incident which took place in the Lords on Tuesday the 3rd of August. It was at 2:36 p.m. on that fateful day that Lord Hurd rose to his feet to broach what turned out to be a momentous question.
My lords, I beg leave to ask Her Majesty's government whether, in view of the fact that the woolsack in this house was last refilled as long ago as 1938, and on that occasion, wool given by the wool growers of Australia, New Zealand and South Africa was used, consideration will now be given to re-stuffing the woolsack with wool produced entirely within the Commonwealth, including the United Kingdom.
Yes, Lord Hurd had got to the bottom of a sinister state of affairs. The Lord Chancellor was actually sitting on a mixture that included apartheid wool. So the Lords took one of their most important decisions of the year, to stuff the woolsack. Now, 7 months later, the job is actually being carried out by the Ministry of Works. So over to their premises to see how this intricate operation is progressing.
Now, what shall we have next, Ramsbottom? A bit of the Basuto or the Bicuana?
I don't know, Mr. Winkworth. There's so many to choose from. I mean, there's £5 of wool here from each of 15 countries. How are we going to get it all in that bag?
As I've told you before, Ramsbottom, there's an art in being a master stuffer. In the first place, you've got to stuff it up, down and round, and not stuff it down, round and up. That's where you've been going wrong, you see. I should have thought you'd have tumbled to that by now, after 5.5 years as a stuffer's mate. Haven't you got no ambition, lad?
Oh, yes, I have, Mr. Winkworth. I don't want to be an apprentice stuffer all my life. I want to be an established stuff stuffer like you.
Yes, but you've got a long way to go, I can tell you, lad. I've had some very important jobs in my time. I've done the stuffing for some of the noblest seats in England, I have. Now, let's be having some more of that wool, or we'd both be getting a wool sack.
Well, there's one lot over here from India, Mr. Winkworth, and some left over from Pakistan.
Oh, well, let's put some cashmere in between. That should make the Lord Chancellor sit up. What's that nice little bundle of wool over there?
That's the woolen contribution from Cyprus, Mr. Winkworth.
Oh, is it, lad? In fact, not the use of that will be in the House of Lords. They don't see many knickers here.
What's that mean, Mr. Winkworth?
Oh, never mind. Of course, this sack we're filling in here has had some of the most highly educated posteriors in the whole land sitting on it, you know. It's what you might call a seat of learning. Anyhow, it's marvellous to think that this wool sack has been here all that time. A symbol of Britain's ancient trade when she was a merchant adventuring and a colonising and a subjugating people all over the world. When the empire was an empire and done exactly what we told it.
But, Mr. Winkworth, if it stood for all that imperial carry-on, why is it that all these different countries in the Commonwealth should want to keep it going and agree to send all this wool for it?
But don't you see, lad, when it comes to Britain these days, it's the only thing the Commonwealth can agree on. Telling us to stuff it.
This week, Mr. Edward Heath, leader of the Conservative Party, has been continuing his Far Eastern safari. It has obviously received a good deal of press and television coverage, but we are frankly surprised it has not fired the imagination of those two most eminent exploiters of foreign travelogues, Armand and Michaela Dennis.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
It was very early in the morning when we left our temporary, rudimentary camp at the Albany in Piccadilly on the trail of the great Tory anthropoid leader, Edward Heath.
Yes, we were making for that outpost of civilization called Luton, and it was not long before we were rattling along the rough, broken track the natives call M1.
Yes. It was a dangerous ride, but we were in high spirits when we finally reached the little landing strip at Luton Airport.
Yes, it was as he came out of a little shack near the runway. I caught my first breathtaking glimpse of the blue anthropoid.
Yes. It was then we were able to creep up and record some of the strange noises he was making.
I think I should point out that I'm not the sort of Conservative who can afford to fly around in a personal private plane. In fact, we would not be getting off the ground at all without a journalist turning out to share the costs with the Conservative Central Office.
Extraordinary. It reminded me very much of the mating call of a radical, not of a reactionary. But, of course, this Tory anthropoid has not got a mate. Yet.
Yes, he looked so cuddly, like a teddy bear. I wanted to pick him up in my arms and pet him.
No. I told Michaela he may look innocent and friendly, but underneath it all, he is a crafty political animal.
Yes.
Yes. The early part of the safari demonstrated very clearly the remarkable esteem in which the Britishers are held abroad, as we learned from our anthropoid's growlings and gruntings.
We had planned to come down for our first stop at Cairo, but since Egypt broke off diplomatic relations with Britain over Rhodesia, we had to rule that out.
Yes. Like the rest of our safari, of which we will tell you a great deal more next week, the trip was full of promise.
Yes, it was the most successful Conservative safari of all time. We will tell you how the Tory leader's plane broke down.
Yes, and how he arrived in India just as his great friend, the finance minister, resigned.
Yes, and how he was snubbed by the Malaysian Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman.
Yes, and how he went to Vietnam and personally failed to stop the war.
Yes, it was a great trip.
Yes, do not forget to join us for another True Blue film next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Monday's papers carried denials by Mr. Joe Grimmond of rumours, notably in the Western Morning News, that he wants to resign as leader of the Liberal Party. There is little doubt that his early retirement would be a disaster for the Liberal Party. It's the sort of disaster which we feel will be taken up promptly by the 19th century Scottish poet and tragedian William McGonagall, if he was alive today. For those of you who've had the misfortune never to read his works, William McGonagall is the man once described as the best of all bad poets. This is the sort of thing he actually wrote as an introduction to his own poems. I earnestly hope the inhabitants of the beautiful city of Dundee will appreciate this little volume got up by me. And when they read its pages, I hope it will fill their hearts with delight while seated round the fireside on a cold winter's night. And some of them, no doubt, will let a silent tear fall in dear remembrance of William McGonagall.
Oh, stone me. I've heard better from Cyril Fletcher.
Anyway, this is the way we imagine Mr. McGonagall, who incidentally was obsessed with names and statistics, would chronicle the career of Mr. Grimmond in immortal Scottish verse.
'Twas July in the year 1913 that little Joseph Grimmond by the light of St. Andrews was first seen. Of a rich Scottish jute manufacturer he was the only boy, although he had two sisters much older than himself, whom he often used to annoy. Oh, what a great tragedy it was he was of the Liberal persuasion, for otherwise he would undoubtedly have been a man for a much bigger occasion.
Although of Scottish lineage, he was sent to Eton for his knowledge, and from thence he won a scholarship for his porridge in Balliol College. Oh, and I'm quite sure young Joseph felt it was grand to be alive when he graduated with first-class honours in modern greats in 1955. Oh, what a great tragedy it was that he was of the Liberal persuasion, for otherwise he would undoubtedly have been a man for a much bigger occasion.
Time came for him to take a wife, a Bonham Castle lass named Laura. She was a bonny Liberal girl, and he loved her from the very first minute he saw her. After a fascinating career in the war, which I'm sure was full of events, he had his appendix out and won the Orkney and Shetland constituency by 2,956 votes from the Conservative candidate, Major Sir Basil Nevin Spence.
Oh, what a great tragedy it was. He was of the Liberal persuasion, for otherwise he would undoubtedly have been a man for a much bigger occasion. 'Twas in the shades of autumn 1956, to be precise, September, that the Liberal leader Clement Davis announced his retirement, as you will remember. When questioned about his successor, he replied, I say to those who asketh, the man for you is Joe, the greatest parliamentarian since Asquith. Oh, what a great tragedy it was. He was of the Liberal persuasion, for otherwise he would undoubtedly have been a man for a much bigger occasion. So Joe went from strength to strength and was given a column in the Sun. And although his party near came to power, they did well to win North Devon and Orpington. But had Joseph been Labour instead of Liberal, he would have had Attlee, Gaitskell and Wilson to defeat. And had he been a Tory, there would have been Churchill, Macmillan, Hume, Heath and many others to beat. So maybe it's just as well, when all is said and done, that he always sits on the fence in the middle, swaying neither to the left nor to the reach. Oh, what a very good job he was of the Liberal persuasion, for otherwise he would undoubtedly never have done anything on any sort of occasion. It's been a bad week for the police force. Their pay claim has been rejected. They have been told they have to pay 9 months back tax on meals and allowances, and now they've even lost their free dental aid. So we thought we had better warn you what will be happening on BBC One at 6:30 tomorrow night.
Evening all. Lovely night again. You know, it's a very serious matter when a policeman goes off the straight and narrow, whether it's a young copper who's gone bent or an old one. Well, I'm afraid that's what happened at the Green this week, and it came as a real bombshell to everybody, particularly Andy and Lordy. Of course, you can't have a bent copper walking round in a manner for long, and the CID were soon onto him. And quite right, too. Even a constable takes home as much as £16 for only working 72 hours a week. So you can see it's not hard to make good money when you're a copper. I should know, I've just made a pile myself. That's why I was so upset when Andy found the printing press in my conservatory. Well, mind how you cross the road. Take care of yourselves while I'm inside. And I hope you'll enjoy the next 260 episodes of Crawford of Dock Green. Evening all.
This week, Sir Savile Garner, Permanent Under-Secretary at the Commonwealth Relations Office, left for Lagos to make arrangements for the Commonwealth Prime Minister's Conference there next Tuesday. It seems to us that all the government's preparatory confusion resembles the rehearsals by the artisans in A Midsummer Night's Dream for the performance of their play in front of the Duke of Athens. So we present tonight our abbreviated version of A Midwinter's Pipe Dream, or Kiss Me Bottomley. The principal dramatis personae are played by members of Transport House Repertory Company, the same old faces in a multitude of foreign parts. They are Harold Quince, the cabinet maker, Arthur Bottomley, the cleaner, Flute Gardener, the gallows render, Smug Callaghan, a coiner, Starveling Stewart, a failure, and Snout Brown, a little tinker.
The cabinet-making room in Harold Quince's house at number 10 Downing Street. The artisans are meeting to discuss their forthcoming production in Lagos.
Is all our company here?
Aye, good Quince. Can we first be told what the play treats on?
Mary Bottomley, our play is that most lamentable comedy, The Death of Rhodesia.
A very good piece of work, Harold Quince, and soon all will be as you like it. Liar Lysander Smith will in truth soon find his economy ruptured, and in our play will get his hernia. Pray, good Harold, let me take over the Rhodesian part.
Nay, Arthur Bottomley, you set down for Lagos.
Lagos.
Flute Gardener, thou lawful instrument.
Here, Harold Quince.
Now, thou too will play a part in Lagos, if I finally purpose not to go. Thou wilt mark Bottomley closely from behind. Observe his every movement, every action, lest he openeth his trap and putteth his big foot in it as it is wrong.
Aye, good Quince. Thou knowest I am a capital punishment man sworn to keep the trap shut. And I will keep well to windward of Bottomley. But expect me not to play nursemaid to him again. It is thy role to hold his hand.
Let me play the British Lion too. I will roar that I will make any black man's heart good to hear me. I will roar so loudly I will make Cowanda say, "Let him roar again! Let him roar again!" That's what Cowanda will say to me.
And you would do it terribly too. You'd be more like to lay an egg with a little British lion on it.
Nay, Bottomley, you can take no part but Harold's part. For Harold is a sweet-faced man, a proper man, a most lovely gentleman-like man of the year, as we've seen in the Daily Mirror.
Aye, let Cecil King be praised.
Aye. Aye, praised but not knighted. That went to the Mirror's fairest of them all, Cassandra.
Now, good masters, I beseech you, study your parts in private, especially you, good Bottomley. Now, In truth, I mean that thou shalt learn thy words, every man, and con them all in Lagos.
We will meet again in Whitehall Wood, and there we may rehearse more obscenely and courageously. Adieu.
The scene, Whitehall Wood. The artisans are assembled for another rehearsal near the Foreign Office.
Hark thee unto me, Harold Quince.
What sayest thou, Bully Bottomley?
There are things in this comedy of Rhodesia and Zambia that will never please. First, Rhodesia must kill herself, which the Amos of this world cannot abide.
I believe we must leave the final killing out when all is done economically.
Aye, sanctions now are biting after all. 'Twill not be long ere Smith is up the Patrick wall. Hark! Who makes this music creeping in my ears?
It's me, I'm from the Foreign Office, dears.
Oh, 'tis Fairy Puck.
That's me, Puck of the FO. I'm here to give advice before you go. Oh, what homespun have we swaggering here?
Now then, Puck, you and your fairies at the Foreign Office must be very kind and courteous to this gentleman. It's Bottomley the Cleaner, bound for Lagos.
Is he? Oh, I'd better get my friends in to have a look at him. Peter Peasebottom, Cedric Cobweb, Martin Moss and Cecil Seed. Oh, he's mastered that one. Now our little fairy band, shake Mr. Bottomley by the hand.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you, yes. 'Tis enough. There's work to do, for he must fly to Lagos.
But first, before you leave, good Bottomley, there is a present for you here, sent by fairy messengers from the darkest reaches of Africa.
A present for me? Pray, Puck, whatever can it be?
It is, O worthy Bottomley, a token of the very esteem and respect in which you are held by them so dear. An ass's head to wear.
An ass's head? I see their knavery. This is to make an ass of me, to fright me if they could. But I will not stir from my job, do what they can. I'm not a fairy, I'm a man.
Now, stir thyself, Bottomley. You and I will strike the final blow, for I have just decided I myself will go.
Aye, Harold, you and I will solve this African impasse. Together we will get Rhodesia Smith to kiss our hand.
And that is our space filled for yet another week. But what of the coming week? As always, we leave you with some burning questions that must be answered.
Will the Portuguese oil pipers call the tune they're paying for?
Will Shelyapin give Hanoi a rocket?
Will England knock spots off Australia without Simpson, or has Hawke put a pox on them?
Will there be a new blacksmith under the Anthony Greenwood tree? There's only one way that you will ever find out, and that's to rendezvous with us in space for a few more orbits next week, when we shall again be going round the world in 30 minutes. Good night.
In this space, you heard a program starring Nicholas Parsons, written by Anthony Marriott and Alistair Foote. Other voices of the world were provided by Denise Breyer, Peter Goodright, and Bob Todd, not forgetting Sandy. The musical gaps were filled by the Tony Osborne Group, research carried out by Colin Reeves, and the whole produced by John Bridges.